That's right. That sound and this good cup of community coffee can only mean one thing. It's the Toter Tales Podcast. Brought to us by our friends, ERS Gunite 972-935-5769. My good friend Tyler Boston. He can fix it all. If you got any concrete needs, he can fix broken dreams to broken hearts, I'm sure. If not, he can at least pour you a sweet pool. He can do anything when it comes to the gunite business. Check him out, Waxahachie, Texas. He's the kind of the co-creator of the Toter Tales. I keep giving him credits because, man, he's the only reason why we started this. So today, for the first time in my toter, and we're gonna get his first official opinion of the signature new look. But I'm gonna bring on my man Clay Smith. Is it two-time world champion?
Two-time.
You know what's funny is like when we leave Vegas and you've kicked our butt successfully, I don't really keep track of how many times that's happened.
No, it hasn't happened that many times, really.
Bert, what do you think of our new signature
nice.
look in the
It's
toter?
really nice inside here.
You were just talking to it. You were thinking about getting a toter home.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you get a family.
You
like,
do have a
I've got
family.
almost three in car seats. One's just now almost out, but three in the back seats. It's pretty full in a regular pickup. This would be ideal.
Honestly, that's exactly why I bought this. Was because Stephan, she never got to go with me. The girls never got to go. And COVID hits, and then she's kind of working remotely where she can be on the road with me a little bit. She takes off, and of course that year, everything we went to was either in Utah or in South Dakota.
Yeah.
So you'd leave Oklahoma, drive to Utah, go to South Dakota, come back to Oklahoma. I mean, just a weird vicious circle. So we take off. The girls are in car seats in the back, and you know how it is. You can't. I mean, that's all you got. But you can't get in the trailer and go take a nap while your wife's driving. In case the kids wake up, they need a bottle, they need a new
I
movie
can't
on.
sleep when my wife's driving anyway. Like, they don't matter where I'm at.
Most women are competent, great drivers. My wife drives great. She'll
She
tell
does.
you, especially from the back seat. She does it really well.
Really good.
She's
Yeah.
like third generation backseat driver, and she's instilling it in my kids.
She is.
It's a family tradition.
Yeah.
So we got to talk a little bit about it. You've had a great year. Congratulations on
Thank
another
you.
great year. Scary moment, of course. We're not going to. I mean, I know you're probably tired of talking about your leg.
No,
You can be honest. It's a Toter Tales. You can be honest.
Really, I don't like any excuses, and so like, I had a little bit of an excuse, but I didn't want this to be the reason why I didn't make the NFR. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like if I entered a rodeo, like that the week that we had the first week, I thought if I was able to show up at a rodeo and compete, there's no excuses to not make the NFR. And so I practiced twice, and the first day that I practiced, it was like, I don't know, you know. That's why I told Jake, I said, I don't know if, I feel okay, but I run 6 steers and I only caught half of them. I said, so I feel okay, and I'm kind of excited, but I said, I need to make sure I can win first. And so I gave it a day, and then I went back and roped for myself, just tried to completely block everything out, and I run 3 steers, and it felt almost back to normal. And so that's why I told him, I said, I'm going to try it. And then I thought, you know, if I entered the rodeo, I didn't want to show up and embarrass myself, you know. I didn't want to show up and embarrass myself.
Especially the week at Dodge City. Those are, I mean, coming from the Prairie Circuit, that's our that's our tour, baby.
Right, that used to be, I mean, Dodge City used to be like the biggest rodeo of the year. You know, it's a special rodeo for me just because I grew up Prairie Circuit, and so it was a special rodeo. And then that week, I knew that if that was the last chance I thought I had to have a big push to have a chance to make the finals, and I didn't know it was going to go, you know, near as good as what it went. And but we just we drew good steers. I mean, it was just, like I said, good Lord, it was all went in plan, like, you know. And so
you had
anyway,
great help in the box.
I had my right hand man helping in the box every steer, so it was good.
Yeah.
We got to talk about that too.
You know what's funny is you say, you know, you caught 3 out of 6. Well, honestly, come August, man, 50% ain't bad.
That's what Jake told me. He said, if you're 50%, we're gonna be okay.
I do love you say that though. No excuses. You know, you have a broke leg. You said no excuses, and I kind of picked your brain about this. Your first one back, Abilene, Kansas. We're talking about it, and like you'd made your run. I wasn't about to talk to you about it beforehand, but I'm like, man, there's no way in the world that I would be close to the barrier on my first year back after what happened. Because I mean, at Prescott, I absolutely don't want to relive it, but just one little tidbit I would like to know. Like, I mean, that come out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like you're riding across there, because like there's times you feel the barrier grab your leg a little bit, but never your right leg like that.
Right.
And so for it to come out of nowhere, and it's kind of like, you know, if you can see danger, you can avoid it, or you know what I mean, you feel comfortable about being around it. But then when it just pops up out of nowhere, I mean, it would have me sketchy. So I was like, the fact you got a great start and hung on one of their very first year back, I thought was incredible. Just because I know for myself, there ain't a chance in the world that I would be leaving before the barrier dropped.
I'm normally done. I don't ever normally have to worry about it because I'm off the barrier so far. I don't ever have
Yeah,
to
you
worry
score
about it.
so bad.
But no, at Prescott, and probably the reason why I hadn't thought about it as much is because it wasn't the barrier in front of the horse. It was the neck rope. So, and at Prescott, I could seen it. That was probably the weirdest thing is I seen the neck rope come up. When I never get a good start at Prescott, it seemed like, but I drill the barrier at Prescott. And I'm like, steer's right here, and I see the barrier fling up, and it goes. It's in my direct vision. I see it fly up like that, and so as I'm coming to the steer, I see it fly up, and I'm like, okay, I thought it was gonna hit my rope. That's in my mind. When I see it fly up, I'm like, I hope it don't hit my rope. And I mean, you know how things happen so fast, and so I'm like, I hope it don't hit my rope. And then when I realize it's going down, I'm like, okay, I'm fine.
You're fine. And it's down.
It's fine.
And
so I can feel it hit my horse's chest. It wraps around in front of my horse's chest, and I can feel it like grab something. I thought it maybe grabbed my stirrup, and so when I go through it, then I mean, just a split second, I'm like, oh, like you know how I mean, everybody that's roped has had the barrier hang their foot a little bit, and so I'm like, I hung my foot a little bit, and then I'm like, and then immediately, like just 1 second after that, it was the worst pain that I've ever had.
Well, I didn't want to make you have to bring that back up, but that was incredible. So I think it is a true testament to like how focused you were the whole time.
Well,
like, wow, that's impressive.
That setup, like that's a cool rodeo, and that setup, you know, it is cool. But like I said, I've never had I was gonna be as fast as Prescott as I've ever been. I've always missed the barrier, broke the barrier, done something stupid.
I don't think I've got to go to Prescott. Even the year that we had COVID and there wasn't very many rodeos, I still got up mad and couldn't go.
For me to get into that rodeo was the freakiest deal. Like that was almost a telltale sign. I didn't need to be in Prescott. There was 40 people asking for that set. We got drawn out. And so we're just like, we're going to hang out. I'll stay at my buddy Jared Fillmore's. We're headed back to Jared Fillmore's. We get a phone call after Greeley that somebody is doctor releasing out, and we're next on the priority list.
Let's go.
And so me and Jake was like, it's only like a 14-hour round trip. Let's just go.
It's just right down there.
And so I leave my family at Jared Fillmore's, my wife and my kid, and me and Jake get in the truck, and we're like, let's go down there. We pull in. It's beautiful. Right before the rodeo starts, pours down rain. And I'm like,
hasn't rained since
no, it hasn't rained all year. And so it's pouring down rain, and it stops like right before the rodeo starts, and the ground's actually perfect. And I'm like, hey, this is awesome. And then it wasn't.
It wasn't awesome. So, kind of a funny backstory to everything bad that happened to you leading up to that. So I had been at Greeley that night. I leave the box. Barrier grabs my left foot, and when I tell you he sticks it behind my left butt cheek, it's up there. And you pull your left leg on my yellow, he's gone. So like he just whoop, and I get, you know how like when you don't know if it fouls you, like it's a tough call to pull up, and then they say no, it didn't get you. You know what I mean? So like you're in the middle of it, you're like, oh, I can still get him, and I blow it by. Watch the video back, and I'm like, I knew something grabbed me, because you know how it is, like you're still focused out there, even though something's got you back here. I mean, obviously you know that. So I called, of course Jake Long called me, hey, what'd y'all do over there? And I tell him, no good, I missed. I said, Barry got my leg. I said, man. I said, Jake, he put my left foot behind, like almost like I was walking off with it. I was like, thank God I'm such an athlete. I said, that'll hurt a normal man. Literally what I told him. That's 5 hours before y'all go to Prescott. And then like he's pulling into Prescott, and we'd gone to my buddy Shane O'Hara's. We're all shooting pool and hanging out there at BS, and he calls me. Now Jake Long, here's a little backstory. Jake Long's broke the barrier. I want to say there's a chance if he didn't win the rodeo or win good that year, he broke the barrier, he broke the barrier. Like he will break the barrier in front of his head. He breaks it all the time.
He loves nailing the start.
He loves it. He just, he wants to show you he can score good. And he can score good. But at Prescott, the problem is the header goes, and then they might float, and he did no float.
Yeah.
So he breaks the barrier a couple times, and so the last thing I tell him was, hey, don't break the barrier tonight. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's like, oh my gosh, why would you? I wasn't even thinking about it.
I remember you
and
telling
then
me.
and then here he goes, calls me back, and I'm like, he calls me, and I can hear in his voice something's wrong, But I'm like, hey, what's happening? And I gave him on speakerphone. He's like, I gotta call you back. I'm like, oh, okay. That's weird. Then he calls right back, says, my partner broke his leg, and I'm like, my gosh. I mean, at first I'm thinking he broke the barrier. Now he's like, he broke his partner's leg. Like, Jake, you're moving the wrong way up the ladder. Let's just score Prescott a little bit. But you know what? We were here to steer roping a few weeks ago. and we were talking about steer rope, and you're a steer roper connoisseur.
No,
you're really good.
No, I'm not. But I love it. I love the steer
You
roping.
won
I
a
love
surfboard in the steer roping.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But I love steer tripping. I really do.
And you were going to enter Pendleton this year before all the. Were you going to enter all the Northwest rodeos?
So I had just sold the horse that I tripped on all the time. I got frustrating with the tripping because I was like, man, it's so hard to get to all of them. And last year I told myself I was wanting to go to enough to try to make the finals, and I didn't get to many of them, and I probably didn't put enough effort out. I try to focus so much on team roping that I'm kind of halfway in the steer roping, and I'm like, I ain't gonna mess it until I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna stop. And so I sold my horse. Dalton Walker had my horse, and so I thought, well, and we made a pact that if I was to enter up here, I could ride that horse. And so I was gonna maybe enter, because it's up in the Northwest, it's a little bit easier to go to these, and so
a little more lax schedule,
right,
guy can get around to it.
Right. But obviously that didn't work. So.
But I mean, still, you want a surfboard. Do you have that put up, or have you used it?
Yeah, no, I haven't used it. I don't even know what to do with it, but I do got it in my barn, so it was pretty cool.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit. One of the things I mean, obviously you come on the scene, Wildfire, open to the world, kind of your big hello to everybody. You Will Woodfin, I think it was.
Won it with Woodfin. I won it with my brother 1 year.
What year? So the first year though was with Woodfin, maybe.
Woodfin was the first year. That was like 2013, and then my brother was 2014.
You bet, back to back, riding Marty.
Right.
And I love Marty. Everybody who knows Clay Smith knows Marty. You know what I mean? Like, probably the greatest head horse.
That horse.
I mean, he would have won. He'd have won the head horse of the year if he had papers. I mean,
right. I think.
I mean,
maybe.
yeah. Let's be honest. My favorite Ronnie Graves one time was like, "Hey, I'll tell you about a horse nobody really knows about. That Clay Smith's got a pretty good grade." This was like 2015. It's like, man, I think everybody knows about that one. Yeah. He's only won the Wildfire twice. Well, let's talk. How did you get here? Where did you come? Because you come from Southeast Oklahoma, horse traders. I mean.
All while I ever did growing up was ride outside horses, ride colts, ride horses. There was summers there that we'd have, between me and my brother, we'd have 18 outside horses, plus our horses. So we'd always had 60 plus horses at the house, always. And
see, I've never been to your place, but that's just growing up. That's what I always heard.
Yeah, that's all we ever did. Me and Jake would ride. What we would try to do is and me and Jake never was early risers ever, and so we would wake up and get around, but we would stay up all night, and we would try to ride the outside horses first, which was always a terrible idea because we was always so tired, and then we'd practice for ourselves at the end, and but all of those things, riding outside horses, people brought, it was kind of like a pawn shop. Like somebody would have a horse, they're like, hey, I want 300 for this 10-year-old stud. Bring it here, we'll look at it. So they'd bring it, never been touched, we'd ride it and make them an offer. Like everything was worth something. And so, hey, this is what we'll give you today. Do you want it? And so by doing that, though, we did get to look at a ton of horses. And my brothers are still doing it now. But it was a full-time job, but we loved it.
So how old are you, though, when you're pawning, like when you're running this pawn shop of horses?
There's videos of me, like, we was kind of like...
like you left the Jay Leno show with your goat pawning horses.
Yeah, my dad would buy ponies for me and Jake to ride. Like, we'd buy ponies on Saturday, and then the next Saturday take them to a different sale. They'd never been rode by this Saturday, but by this Saturday we were roping something on them. And then we'd take them to a different sale, and just... By the time, I don't know, I bet by the time I was 13 years old, I bucked off 150 times. I bet I was bucked off...
So, I mean, it starts early,
times.
This pawn shop.
Oh,
and you'd look at anything.
Yeah, we was like a little circus, me and my brother. That's what we was, just...
And now, Jake, what's
he's 2 years younger than me.
2 years. So y'all were close.
We were close in age, and we rode everything. I mean, we rode donkeys. I've been on a llama, I've been on everything, like just horse sales. We went to every horse sale.
Pause.
Yeah.
You can't just breeze over. You rode a llama. Did you rope on the llama? Or what?
You'd show up at those horse sales, and what it got to be, me and my brother got to making money at the horse sales. We'd show up with 2 or 3 horses that we would sell at the horse sale. Like we'd go to 4 or 5 sales a week. Every week, go to horse sales. Me and my grandpa, my dad, and Jake. And so you'd show up at the horse sales, and you'd have your 2 or 3. Well, you'd get at the back, and me and Jake be playing left leg or roping the fast lane for money. Acting like you'd miss. Hustling at the back. And then there would be a guy like, hey, I'll give you $10. You ride this horse in the ring. And so
$10.
Oh yeah.
That's your wages.
Yeah, $10, ride him in the ring. Well, it didn't matter if they give us $5, anything. Oh yeah, we'll get on it. So me and Jake would get on him in the back and ride it around a little bit. Got bucked off, several times. Hey, ride this horse in the ring for me. Well, they buck you off in the back, And then we'd ride it in the ring, and we rode them in the ring where they try to rub you off, rear up, buck, just whatever. But we'd ride it in the ring. They'd give us $10. Well, for some reason, I was small enough, I can't really remember. Somebody had a llama, and I got on a llama or something. I can't even remember. It was so long ago, but that was kind of the joke. The auctioneers heard about it, and so every time we go to sell, I was little, and they'd say, "What'd that llama do to you?" And I guess I'd say it bucked my ass off. I couldn't even say ass right. But there's been all kinds of stories. But I grew up with all those. So like Steve Friskup, was the guy that. So I grew up knowing all the auctioneers and all the ring men, and so anyway, but that was like we would do that. That was like the highlight of me and Jake's week, get to go to the horse sale. We loved horse sales.
That's like vacation for you.
Well, we loved going to a horse sale. And then we went to them so much I finally got burned out. Like now I don't even hardly go to any of them. But we'd go to the horse sales and make enough money to go to the jackpot that weekend or whatever. That's what we'd do.
That was your hustle.
Yeah, we literally would if you clear 150 on a horse, you sell it on a pony. I've got a video of my brother was watching. Those got VHS tapes just by the thousands that of me and Jake riding these ponies, roping on them and getting bucked on all this crazy stuff. But Jake just sent me a video a couple days ago, me heeling on this pony that we had bought. I remember we give like $400 or $500. I think I was 14.
Big investment.
13 or 14.
That was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot for a pony. I mean, $300-400. And we buy it, and his name was Podunk. That's what we called him. He bucked, but Jake sent me a video of him heading for me the other day on this pony. It's a pretty sweet video. You gotta watch it. And me heeling on this pony, and Jake heading for me. And anyway, we roped on everything. Though.
Did you get dubs?
Oh yeah, that's why I got the video.
So you got this just pawn shop menagerie of horses going on.
Right.
I mean, 60 head all the time.
Yeah, we had. It was to feed. It's like a dairy, I mean, feeding all those horses. Mm-hmm. But we got to look at a bunch of horses, and so that's how Jake's Roan, which to me, that heel horse that he had was, Douglas Richards got him now. That heel horse they were almost the same age. The Roan's a year or two older than my gray. And the Roan came in, and my gray came in about the same time. And but my gray horse, we were at home. A friend of mine named Marty Cottle. He lived 30, 40 miles away. He had a sorrel head horse, and Marty always had really nice horses. Like, he always had a really pretty horse, and he always had a nice head horse. Marty has a sorrel head horse that we had been watching him rope on. It was like, it's a nice horse. And so we asked Marty if he would sell him, and Marty said, yeah, I'll sell him. And so he brings him to the house, lets me rope on him. I rope on him. He's a nice horse. And he tells me, I said, what do you want for him? He says, 12.5. And it was like, 12.5. I mean, we ain't never getting no money. But man, Mark, that's a good horse. But 12.5, that's crazy.
Let's be realistic here.
Yeah, we can't give 12.5 for that horse. And so he had a gray horse that was tied to his trailer outside. And I said, what's that gray out there? He kind of caught my eye. I said, what's that gray out there? That's my boy's horse. I said, I got you. He said, you gonna ride him? I said, yeah, bring him in here. Let me look at him. So he brings him in, and he had him saddled already. And I said, what's he been doing on him? He said, he's healed a few steers, just lead steer, tracked around in the arena. He's like, I said, well, he looks like he's almost big enough to head on. He said, do whatever you want to with him. He's like, I don't care. So I'm asking him if he wants to sell him before, because, if
always get a price before you.
Yeah, because if he looks good, then he's worth more. Whatever.
Absolutely.
So anyway, Marty he's a good guy, and so he brings him in there, and I get on him. I'll lope him around a little bit. Well, I'm like, hey, you mind if I try to head one on him? He said, do what you want. So we had to slow steer. I back him in the box. He just stands there. I take him out after a steer, and I remember he just pins his ears and just lays his ears back like just hates a cow, and he runs up there ropes and he turns off. He just kind of wallers off. He don't know anything, but he was always super cowy. And so I run 2 or 3 on him. And I said, he's a nice horse. You don't want to sell him? No, I can't sell him. I said, well, all right. He said, I'll holler at you later. So he leaves. And about 4 months later, we see Marty he would go to some amateur rodeos and stuff, and we'd always see him around. And Marty, we seen him about 4 months later, and he said, "Hey, you still want that gray?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm interested in him." He said, "Hey, my boy ain't riding him enough or whatever." He said, I think I'm gonna sell him." I said, "Well, I'd be interested in looking at him." Cause,
Now, how old are you right then? Like the year negotiating the deal of the century.
I'm gonna say 16, 17 ish,
I mean,
something
young,
like
yeah,
that.
young, yeah.
Right. So he says, "Yeah." He said, "I'll bring him back over to you next week." And so we said, "Okay, perfect." So he comes back to the house, brings the gray. He said, "Hey, he's been rode maybe once or twice since you rode him." Well, we had just me and my brothers hit a big lick at Jake hit a big lick at the U.S. Finals. Well, the dream of our life was to have a covered arena, and so we had won enough money at the U.S. Finals one year to put a top. We covered arena. We had an outdoor arena. And when it rained, it just literally me and Jake hated the rain. We roped in the mud if it rained. As long as it wasn't raining, we was roping. But it rains all the time in Broken Bow where we grew up. And so like our dream was to have a covered arena. So me and Jake win enough money at the US Finals, our dad talked into building a covered arena. It's 120 wide and 250 long. And we get it built. I mean, and when I mean get it built, the guys that built, I mean, it's a weld up job. I mean, if you can only imagine how hillbillies would build an indoor arena, this was it. But it is nice. But to me and Jake, it was like the Lazy Eagle.
It's the daddy.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was unbelievable. So we had
like,
just
let's paint it yellow. It looks like the
yes,
mom.
yeah.
You know
It was an amazing deal, but we hadn't had it very long, and Marty shows up, and it was in April, and it's pouring down rain, kind of a little bit chilly, and it's loud in there, and he brings that horse in there, and horse he's a little bit snorty, a little watchy. I warm him up a little bit. I chased after the first steer, and he bucks going down the arena, like just going over a speed bump, crow hopping.
Not like a llama would buck your ass off.
No, not like that. Not near that range. Well, we get to the back end. I rope the steer, and I just kind of follow to the back end. We get to the back end, and me and Jake, we get to the back end, and we look at each other, and I was like, perfect.
Setting the trap.
I go back up there. I said, "Hey, sucker, what the heck are we going to do with this thing? I don't know what he's bucker. He ain't no bronc." He said, "He's just a little fresh." He said, "He's just a little bit fresh." He said, "He ain't been rode in a long time." And I said, "Well, what are you going to have for him?" He said, "I got to have 5,000. I said, 5,000? He said, "Yep." I said, "Well, I'll run a few more." So I chased a few more. He's the same way, just real cowy.
Does he buck again?
No, he don't buck no more. He
So that angles out.
Yeah, we're done on that. But Marty knew too. Like he knew us well enough. He knew what we was doing. And so anyway, we get done, and I said, "Marty," I said, "I'll give you 4,000 for that horse." I ain't gonna do it.
Now you're the negotiator. So if we were talking like Pawn Stars,
That's what I said one time. Like I was like the Chum Lee. Like when the small fries came in, I could make a deal. Like if they cost 10,000, no.
We had to go up that.
Yeah,
ladder.
we got to go up somebody else talk to.
So what did Britt get to trade on at that point?
Britt at this time, we thought there was something wrong with Britt at this time because Britt got bucked off of a pony when he was like 3 years old and he was scared of horses. So me and Jake always thought there was something wrong with Britt. Like Britt was kind of like timid to horses. We was like, we don't know what's going on with this
What's wrong with that boy?
Like, he could rope the dummy as good as anybody when he was 3 and 4, but he was scared of horses when he was like 4 and 5, which is normal. But at the time, me and Jake thought there was something really wrong with him. Yeah, because me and Jake was roping.
So he's trading on the $100 and less goats.
Right.
And you got Jake. He gets up to 3,500, and then you on the big ticket items at 4,000.
Right. Britt was doing the belly roll and matching people on the dummy. When he was 3 and 4 years old. Like that's what he could do. He could do the belly roll. He still can too. We got to get him.
Like the worm.
Yeah,
like
he
on the
can
dance
raise
floor?
up and like no.
Oh.
He can do the actual like the belly roll.
I can do that going over speed bumps.
Yeah, that's a different deal.
My favorite, and just to pause on your story, my favorite memory of your little brother was at the goat pen at the U.S. Finals one time. This cat turns one, goat drags. Wow. And I don't even know him, but he can't, I mean, he's not knee high to a grasshopper.
Yeah.
And you can see it just all over his face, just starts melting down. And he's looking back at like the guys that own the goats. And as soon as they look back to the next team, whop! He kicks that goat. I mean, he couldn't have been 3 years old.
We wasn't really sure when Britt was, 3, 4. He was mean, Britt has turned out so good. Like he's kind of quiet, he's a real good young man. But when Britt was 5, 6, 7, we was like, he's gonna be in jail. Like
I mean, welcome to Broken Bow.
he was gonna be in jail because he knew all the dirty jokes. He knew, he knew way too much for his age.
But he was scared of horses. So like,
he was
what
kind of
is
a little
wrong
bit
with you?
scared of horses. Like we would go pin the steers, and Britt was. It was kind of funny. My grandparents lived up on the hill, on another pasture where we lived, and we'd go gather steers every day. I don't know, now I leave my steers wrapped in it, and just go gather them. But back then, we unwrapped steers every night, turn them out, and it'd take an
Like
hour.
40 steers, 50. I mean,
Yeah,
you
we had quite a few steers, and now they were wore out. There wasn't no fresh. Getting fresh steers back then was like Christmas. Like that's what we got for Christmas one year was a fresh set of steers. Like that was fresh set of steers was. We could not wait to break in steers. We roped the same steers until they couldn't fit in the chute no more. But we'd go pin the steers, and Britt would go. We'd lead him when he was like 4 and 5, and we'd get over there to our grandparents' house. And he said, "Hey, can I get off and get a sandwich?" That was his out of getting. I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead, Britt." So we just tie his horse up, and he'd go to Grandma's house and Grandpa's house, and me and Jake would do all the work. But anyway, he came around finally.
So you're chum Lean over here at this deal for 4,000.
Right, he tells me he wants
5,000.
$5,000 for the horse, and so I tell him, I said, Marty, I'll give you 4,000 for him. Nah, I ain't gonna do it. He said, I gotta go. Marty's he's always in a hurry, and so he said, I gotta go, and so we said, okay. So he leaves, and used to every Wednesday night we'd go to Pizza Hut. That was like our gathering. Every Wednesday night we'd go to Pizza Hut. I think it was Wednesday maybe. I'm 90% sure. We're all sitting down and we're having dinner, and we're asking what's going on that day or whatever. And, it gets brought up about the horse. Hey, what about the gray? Didn't get the gray bought. And I was like, man, I offered him $4,000 for him, and he told me he wanted 5. And Marty came down to 4,500. He said, I'll take 4,500, and I tell him no, and he leaves with the horse.
So you almost didn't buy Marty over $500.
It was $500. It was $500, and so he leaves.
Wow.
He leaves with him, and we get talking about it, and my dad brought up, he said, hey, he said, if you like that horse, you probably ought to buy him. Because every time we buy one, we think we have a number in mind what we think we can get for it. It was like, I bet that horse probably, you ride him 6 months, you probably get $6,500, $7,500 for him, And,
good wages.
Yeah, it's great. And it was like, you know what, you're probably right. Probably. So I said, you know what, I'll call him in the morning, which my morning was a little bit later than most of the people's mornings, Marty calls. My dad's upstairs. Me and my brother stay in the basement, and my dad was upstairs, and he hollers down like 8 o'clock the next morning. He says, "Hey, Marty." I was gonna call Marty and give him 4,500 the next day. Marty called and he said, "Ask if I had 4,000." And we said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm bringing that horse to you." It's like 8 o'clock the next morning. So he pulls in, and I write him a check, and he takes off $4,000.
$4,000.
$4,000 is what he called it. But and then at the time, I was excited to have him because he was really pretty. He was maybe the prettiest horse I'd ever seen that's come on that place, I thought. And
I mean, that paint you had, the paint stud or whatever.
he was pretty cool. I had a pretty cool
He was
paint
pretty.
heel horse. He was pretty cool for a paint horse.
So you got your new toy.
Right.
Let's get after it.
I was pumped.
How old is Marty at that time? Then?
He's 4. He's 4. He just turned 4 that year, and so.
But with no papers.
No papers. Right.
But they knew what he's out of, I guess. Or...
So he came before Marty. This horse was before Marty had him. He'd had 3 different owners. He came off the Brosico Ranch. So the Prefort's father-in-law, Nate Prefort, all them, they had their father-in-law. His name's Tractor Brad. I found out the whole information on him years later, but they raised that horse. His daddy is a son of Hollywood Dunnett. Marty's a grandson of Hollywood Dunnett, is what he is. His mama, they thought the guy that raised Marty's mama died, and Marty's mama was an old mare, and they think that she had papers. And we sent in hair. We tried to get papers a little bit. Years later, at the time we didn't even care, but 4 or 5 years later, we tried to get papers. We tried to get papers on him, and anyway, we couldn't do it. His mama must not have been registered, is what the deal was, I guess. But we tracked down the whole deal, and anyway, but Marty was, when he was 2 and 3, he was pretty waspy. Like, not a bronc, like, hurt you, but, like, real watchy, like, get away. Like, he didn't want nobody petting on him. When you got on him, he was pretty good. But he didn't want nobody petting on him, loving on him. Like, he's kind of like, He just kind of didn't want anybody messing with him. But when I get him, I was so excited to have him, and I start using him. Like I snub colts on him. That's how I started. I started snubbing up colts, outside horses. You know, we'd snub up colts, pin the steers, and just start using him. And then Jake. So at the time, I was basically a healer. At the time, like I wasn't really even a header. I was full-fledged healer. 17. When I was 17 years old, I thought I was going to be a healer.
Wheeler.
And I mean, I loved it. I mean,
Clay. Ray O.
Right, that's how you know it, Jake and Clay. And so, anyway, so my brother actually took that. I was heading on him. I headed on him some. Jake rode him some, and Jake actually took him to some of the first opens the horse ever went to. Heading on him, like the first outing that horse ever went to was Murfreesboro. Yeah, it was Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Jake headed on him in the 15, and Will Woodfin headed on him in the 15. Will Woodfin was one of the first persons that ever headed on him at a roping too one time.
Wow.
At a big roping.
How long did it take to get him?
So I don't know when this is, but so I buy him in April. That same year, sometime in there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a header now. And like the U.S. Finals rolls around, I ride him in the Open in October. He's 4.
Wow. You rode him in the Open at 4 years old.
Right, and I thought he did amazing. And I watched the video back, and I'm like, he looks pretty green. You know, but by the time that horse was 5 years old, he had been everywhere. You know, and I blew a lot of them up. You know, I messed 2 or 3 nice horses up in the box. You know, because back then, when I had a horse, that's what I rode everywhere. You know, I rode him amateur rodeos, the jackpots everywhere. And so that horse, he stayed together in the box. He was great in the box the whole time. And anyway, by the time he was 5 and 6 years old, he got it everywhere. So.
This is my new addition. Sometimes the toe tails if the fly gets to bothering us. Is that your bad leg?
No, this is my good one.
Okay, good.
This is my good one.
Because if it lands right there, just don't worry. I'll just come hot.
Just get it.
So 4 or 5 years old, you start rodeoing what year? Oh, it was almost. That would have been. I won't go with fake. So you start rodeoing on him. Let's see. You make the finals the first time would have been probably 14. Didn't we make it the first time together?
So my rookie year was 2013. 15 was my first year to make the F1. Yeah.
But 15. You rode the Dun there the first year.
Right. So the Dun is a cool story too. The Dun, you got the Dun horse that I had Marty and Jazz was the 2 horses, and I just thought they were, looking back, I'm like, man, you know what, that as a header, you know, like you have a horse or 2 horses that kind of make you. I mean, you know, like those 2 horses is what is the reason why I'm here today. I fully believe the Dun horse, a friend of ours that lived literally 4 miles down the road, named Terry Jeans. You've probably heard of Terry Jeans. I don't know if you know Terry, but anyway, Terry Jeans, he would pay me to turn him steers. He would say, hey, what are you doing today? Is there anybody over there? No, it's kind of a light day. He said, hey, would I pay you? Would you turn me some steers? Yeah. So you
go from riding llamas in the ring at $10 a piece. Now you're getting paid to head steers.
Which was like paid to rope. You know, that was amazing. He would give us a little money, and man, it meant the world to me and Jake. Like, he didn't have to do that. I would have turned him steers anyway. But he's like, he wanted like a one-on-one session, so I would turn him steers. And so one day he comes over. He says, hey, I got a head horse. He said, can I bring my head horse? Would you ride some on my head horse? I said, run some on my head horse. I said, yes, sir. So he brings the head horse over. Pretty done. I get on him. I run about 3 or 4, and I tell my brother, I said, hey, this guy's got a really good head horse. Jake's like, wow, whatever. You know, he's like, whatever, bull crap. I said, no, I'm telling you, it's a pretty good horse. So I call Terry maybe the next day. I'm like, hey, Terry, you want to come over and rope again? Would you bring that head horse over, please? Yeah, I'll bring him.
Now, how old are you at that time?
Same, like 17, 8, 17. I'm thinking about heading now. You know,
so now we need to gather up some stuff.
I'm thinking about heading. Like, I need to get some head horses together. And so Terry comes over. He brings a horse. While I run some on him, I said, hey, Terry, what are you gonna do with this head horse? He said, I might sell him. And I said, well, what's he gonna cost? I'd have to have quite a bit for him. I said, well, I figured. Anyway, it kind of went out the window. Me and my brother have a sponsor back in this time. His name is Mondo. Mondo. I call Mondo. I said, Mondo, I know you're helping me out a lot, but I have a head horse here that a guy has that he said he's gonna want some money for him. But I said, this head horse I think is good enough to like make the finals on. I said, if I had this horse, I would be like set, man.
We'd be ready.
Be pumped. So Mondo said, I'll be right there. He said, "When you get him over there, I'm gonna come in." So Mondo, he flies in. He's got a little charter plane. He flies in. We go pick him up. We get everything scheduled. I call Terry. Terry, would you come over and bring a head horse? Yeah. So he comes over. Mondo flies in, brings his vet. He's got a vet. He's got a woman that's a vet. That's,
wow.
So
now that's a guy who's buying.
We got everything lined up.
Because I'm sure you dealing in the horse deal. How many people come to look at your horse and don't even bring a trailer?
Right. No.
You know what I mean? Like, now this guy's bringing a vet. He's for real.
Right. Me and Jake, on the trailer deal, me and Jake, somebody pulled up. Me and Jake used to want to soul up bad. You know, somebody would call, you want to buy a horse, they'd pull up, drive wherever, and they'd have no trailer. Me and Jake's like, they ain't gonna buy nothing, you know. But we were ready. Mondo, he's all in, and so it was amazing what he was doing for us. And so he flies in, brings his vet. I call Terry. Terry, what are you doing today? Nothing. I said, would you bring that horse over and let me run someone? Yeah. So he comes over, brings the head horse. I run some steers. Mondo's watching, and so Mondo had helped me out so much. I didn't want to be like, hey Terry, I got the sponsor guy that's going to buy this horse, so I'm just letting you know. So I just wanted Terry to price me the horse, what he's going to buy. I had backup. Mondo had helped me so much. I was hey, whatever the horse costs, Mondo, this is what he's going to cost. And so he comes over, and I run some on him, and Mondo, he said, that was nice. He said, well, the horse looks good. So he trots him. We had a concrete alleyway. Trots him up down the alleyway. His vet's looking at him, And so I asked Terry, before we get all this done, I said, hey, Terry, what are you going to have for that horse? I said, I know you said a lot, but would you, can you tell me?
Give me a number.
Can you give me a number?
So you roped on him without getting a number.
Right. I had no idea until Mondo got there. I didn't know what the horse was going to cost. I'm thinking $30,000, I thought it was going to cost a lot of money. Right. And so he trots him up down the concrete. I asked Terry, before we do all this, I said, Terry, can you give me a number, how much this horse is going to cost? He said, you know what? He said, I'd have to have $7,500 for him.
Oh, my God. Mondo's plane ride up there cost more than that.
Yeah. He said, I'd have to have $7,500 for him. And I went, oh, my gosh, I think we can do this. And so we go, me and Jake, and we tell Dad, hey, Terry wants $7,500 for this horse. We don't need Mondo, I don't think. I think we can do this. And so I tell Mondo, hey, Mondo, he wants $7,500 for this horse. Let me handle it. So he trots him up down the concrete. He's trying to Jew Terry. I think he gets involved. Mondo buys the horse for him. I told him, I said, Mondo, I can do this. No, let me handle it. He loved wheeling and dealing. I love Mondo. He trots him up down. He's sound, whatever. He tells Terry, what are you going to have for this horse? $7,500. I think he Jewed him a couple $100. Anyway, it was kind of hilarious how it all went. Maybe give $7,300 for him or something. But Mondo buys him and gives him to me. And so anyway, but it was amazing to have those two horses.
No,
I had
$7,500
in one and $4,000 in another one, and it was the two best horses I've ever had. And so it was kind of crazy. And what that done did so good is when you wanted him to pull, if you turn the cow off, when you want him to pull, he would run through a fence pulling, and then I don't know what he had. It's almost like he had something wrong with him in the back end. He could be dead pulling that way, and when you want him to face, he would just wheel. You could put him in any spot, and his back end was like dislocated. He would just wheel around, and a buddy of mine actually fell off of him, facing him at the first time he fell off. He would just wheel around and face, and so I always thought, man, if I make the finals, that horse would be.
That's what we're going on.
That's what we're going to be on. And so anyway, it was kind of cool.
So your first year you rode him, outstanding. I remember that. And then you come back. The first time you win the world, though, you got on Marty. And the reason, like that year, like maybe Nampa and some of them, Marty wasn't pulling up in the wall like you wanted.
Right. Yeah, he had never been inside. He had never been in a building. He didn't know what a little tight, confined building was.
A little more on that, you have a covered arena, but still, when they can see outside, it's such a difference. People don't realize that. That's why I put my bales of hay up when I'm practicing, because it's just closed off. And I crash them into it a lot. I'm not very good.
That's exactly what we did. So at home, I rode him, and and the other deal is why I didn't ride Marty at the NFR the first couple of times is because when you start riding them at the NFR, it makes those horses want to be a little bit more tight. I think you take a little bit of run at them. The NFR is the hardest place to rope on them all year long. To me, on a head horse, it's the hardest place to ride a head horse.
Yeah, getting a specialized unit in that building is really a privilege. Having one that just has, Heisman, it's such a blessing to have him that A, don't have to think about what I'm going to ride, and B, your setup is for that, and I don't have to take the run out of anything else I got.
Right. I mean, it's the hardest place all year to ride a head horse is at the NFR. You know, in Nampa, it's kind of like that too. It's just there's not a lot of left, so as soon as you stick it on the saddle horn, you know, you don't have no forward. You can't have enough forward momentum, and so the horses kind of want to get. You know, it's almost better at the NFR if a steer dang sure steps right, even where you can kind of push up and finish in the middle. But one step's left, then all of a sudden they got to be on the left leg coming back. You know, it's hard on a head horse inside that building. But that's the reason why I was like, Marty was so good. Marty was the reason why I made the NFR.
So you want to keep him.
And so I was like, man, I'll keep him. I don't want him doing
do
that.
the old Bob and Viper. Bob gets us there, Viper wins.
Right. That's how I did it. And the Dunn, he didn't care. He never ever would think about ducking. And if I wanted to hit the fence, he just hit the fence, you know. But then it got to the point where it's like, man, I want to win. You know, I had the goal. I want to win the world. You know, win the world. And so I was like, Marty's gonna get it. And so I put hay bales up in the barn. And the same thing what you're saying. I wrote little light muleys and would make him get to the fence and then just kick it off and got him strong. And so, you know, I rode him out there, and then it was like, why wasn't I doing that all along? But
signature moment, let's have that real fast. Thanks, brought to us by our Signature Living Quarters, which you've already been oogling over. I'm telling you, buy you a toter, Signature Living Quarters, let them redo it. Doesn't it look cool with the white? It brightens up, and then you can,
awesome.
With the dark shades, you can nap during the day. We were talking about how, I mean, naps are important.
They are.
Let's be honest.
They are.
You know, two things you've hit on. So our signature moment, I like to give advice out there for youngsters, anybody watching. I mean, it doesn't have to be a roper necessarily, but, you know, you talked about this year, no excuses. Like, you've had no excuse. You're not going to let the leg define you, this and that. You know, working through Marty, getting strong at the finals. What would be something that Clay Smith in 2022 would tell Clay Smith in 2013, 12, 14?
To me, I guess, is you know, growing up, you have dreams like, you know, you see guys, and sometimes you think that those dreams are almost unattainable, and I guess, for me, it's to tell a young kid something. You know, it's like there is nothing different about none of us out here. I mean, you know, like this rodeo deal is. I guess it's one of those things. It's like you grow up, this is all you want to do, and then, you know, now when you're doing it, you're like, it really wasn't that much to it. But all the little things that led up to it, all the time, I'll tell you what, figuring out how to win at the high level is a lot of determination, you know, growing up. Like, if you work at it hard enough and surround yourself with people that are doing it the right way, and like there was guys that I watched, 2 or 3 different guys. I watched them guys rope, and I was like, okay, my style is, you can't match my style. Nobody can match my style, but I can put my style with this guy and figure out what to do. And so to me, I guess it would be like your young guys growing up is like, figure out who is winning, figure out who's doing it the right way. And I guess what I would say is people think about roping so much, but horsemanship, man, if a guy can, you know, like making a horse last, I wasn't able to go buy a new horse. This is what I had, and luckily I had Mondo helping me there, but before all that, like, I had a horse, and I had to figure out how to make him last as long as I could. And so roping is good, but you also, if a guy ain't working on his horsemanship and figuring out how to, when you get done with that horse, no matter what age he is, when you get done with him, he should be better. And so figuring out how, when you get done with the horse, that he's doing better, that at any level, if
that's
he's
a deep
17.
lesson to learn early.
Well, I mean, that's,
no, that's, you know,
but,
something Tiffany's always on me about is communication and how the horse, you know, she told me the other day my problem with one was at 3 o'clock I should go look him in the right eye, and I'd see the problem. So, like, I walked around and was like, does he have a blue spot? Like, what? And I just see
the reflection.
I just see my face staring right back at him. And, you know, thanks, Tiff.
Yeah, right.
No, but I think it's a great lesson. And so, you know, that kind of leads us back to Marty. Here he is. You went around last year, and he actually had an injury and let you win the round. I mean, he had some heart.
Yeah, that horse, it's a good and bad thing. That horse was the toughest horse. I've never had a horse that tough. That horse, I can count on one hand, like, that horse, he pulled a muscle in his shoulder at the BFI on the first steer, probably. I run the second steer on him at the BFI. This has been 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah, that's when you got off and got on.
I didn't know what's going on with him. I said, I didn't know what's going on with him. He come out, and I'm like, he is done. And he had a strained muscle in his shoulder, but he did it first round, I know. But that horse, it was a good, bad thing. That horse, you would never know he was hurt until he was, like, really hurt. and he would hide it from you. He was so tough because every time you nodded, he was after the cow. And so I took him last year and roped on him at the muley roping that they had in Arizona, and I run probably 10 on him at a muley roping, walking fresh muleys, and I take him to NFR and ride him at the NFR.
Right after that, like you go to Arizona on your way.
Went to Arizona on the way and ride him out there, and then I went to the NFR and rode him out there at the NFR. There at the end when I was like, I knew I could make the same run on him and be faster than I could be on the horse I was riding at first. And so anyway, I got on him.
I mean, you rode Boogie. I mean, it wasn't like you was sloppy.
That's a good horse. That's an amazing horse, man. That's an amazing horse. My little sister-in-law, that was her horse, and so she let me ride him out there at the NFR last year, and I mean that horse got some age on him, but that horse is an amazing horse. And then I screwed up about halfway through, missed one, and then I knew I needed to get on Marty and like kind of go at a couple, and so
bring the pain. 3-6 day money, first year out.
We did, and then everybody was like, why wasn't you riding him the whole time?
The whole time, because it's hard to do that 10 times in a row when they start. That's I think Hunter Keir told me the best. You want your horse sharp, but you don't want him too sharp.
Right.
But he can't be too rusty either. I mean, he's got to be almost coming like this, so that about round 8.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. If you start off, you want to win the first round,
Every
but
time.
if you're 3-6 in the first round, it's a long week. I mean, it's going to get tighter and tighter.
Sounds like it'd be an amazing week when you curl a front leg and go get the whistle. This year I headed, heeled him, and made the whistle all in the first round. So I mean, that's a tough way to start the week. I would much prefer to try on that 3-6 you're speaking of. No,
Yeah.
but you have a great point. I mean, they're that sharp. It's hard to. And that's when you're horse for the finals. The first couple of years I took 2 horses that were like the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they were both the same off the back of the box, like off the reins. They were both the same amount of free in the arena. Well, then it's like if I jump ship midstream,
Right.
I mean, it's pointless.
Right.
So then I started going with, okay, I got one that falls off the bridle reins rolling in case it starts really fast. And then I always like having one that's a little deader off of it because sometimes it's such a timing out there for me. I don't know how for you because it happens so fast you can't really watch the cow like I'm accustomed to. And then, so, I got one deader off the reins, but that one that's deader off the reins, he's going to be ducking. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because if you jump, like you said, if you mess up and you jump ship midweek, you need to be 3 on the next
A guy really does need 2 horses out there, and very rarely do you use them, it seems like. Or, I mean, there's been a few times I have, but
do you grand entry on the same horse you rope on?
no, my dun horse, he was so laid back that I did, but Marty, when I first started riding him out there, I took him to the grand entry, that first time, and then he was breathing fire. Like
I was
he
having
was
to ace
up.
my yellow just to get through it.
So you almost need a colt.
So Speedy told me the first time I ever made it, and I thought this is great advice, and I always tell everybody that, like, what's the best piece of advice you got about the finals? You do not grand entry on the same horse you compete on. They get bumped around, all those rough stock riders banging into you, get some sore before the end of the week. Like, I just hear every time when I'm going to go out there, it's like, I know I'm not riding. I don't care how terrible the grand entry goes, I'm not riding this one because Speedy told me not to.
Don't do it. I did, but here the last few years I've tried to ride something else in the grand entry just because, like what you're saying. I mean, what if somebody? I mean, the rough stock guys mount out on a horse. Really, the rough stock guys probably shouldn't be in the grand entry. Like,
wow, that's so crazy.
They probably
Wade
shouldn't be.
Sundell last year gets sent home round 5.
I mean, borrowing horses, and they bring this string of horses in here that hadn't been rode all. It's pretty dangerous.
I mean, they might as well get on a llama in southeast Oklahoma and run through a horse set.
That would be more entertaining if they rode llamas.
$10.
I'd do anything.
The Clay Smith for $10, you'd do anything.
I would get on anything. Get on anything.
Now, so let's talk a little more about Marty. I mean, it's such a fascinating story. Actually, going to have a chance to maybe purchase Marty.
Yeah. So, this is what I mean. It would be nice to. That was one horse I've always said. Was like that horse. That horse will die on the place. But I'm to the point. I got 3 kids. I mean, rodeo guys. I wish I
collect them. Like you know what I mean? Like I've got my retirement pasture. My wife gets on me all the time. She's like, "There's too many in the retirement pasture," and I'm like, "But I love them all." You know what I mean? And they all made such an impact to me that like I cannot let. And so that to me is fascinating what you're fixing to tell.
Well, it was a big deal, like, to even think about this. But so I'm kind of selfish. Like I don't want Marty being rodeoed anymore. Like
Right.
you know how it is. Going up and down the road is the hardest thing on a horse. Like it ain't the amount of steers that you rope on them. Like taking him to a jackpot's not a big deal. But it's just the wear and tear up and down the road and sending. I mean, just like yes. I mean, we drive from Ellensburg 9 hours to Blackfoot, Idaho, and then 9 out. We rope Blackfoot, turn around, drive 9 hours back. Like 18 hours in the trailer for a $1,500 rodeo. It doesn't.
That you
make
got to go to right now.
I have to go to
Yeah.
right now, but it doesn't make any sense on horse wise, and so all those little things, I'm like, man, he's done enough for me. Like I'm not going to do that to him anymore, and he's I don't want to ride him at the in between jackpot. Like he's too special of a horse for me to ride at some of the stuff that I need to be riding him at because that's what he was when I was riding him all the time. That's when he's the best, and so I said I was thinking about selling him because, I mean, 3 kids, I bought a new place, we were working on, I mean, you know how it is, it's life, and my kids are young enough, if my kids were old enough to ride him, I would not sell him, but my boy's 4, I got a girl that's 2.
You don't think your 4-year-old strap it on right there? I mean,
He's still a lot of horse, that's the thing about that horse is I thought, he'd be my kid's horse. That horse is still a lot of
that's
horse.
a lot of Marty right there.
He's a lot of horse. If he was to back him in the box and this gate, he's going to go as fast as the cow's going to go. Like he's not. I think he would be so old by the time my kid could ride him that it would be pointless. Because when the gate opens, if the cow's walking, he'll go behind him. But if the cow's running, he's running. There's no holding him back. I mean, he's going to chase the cow as fast as he can, and so he'll be too much horse for my kid until my kid's probably 14. And that's 10 years away. And so anyway, I said I wanted to sell him, but I didn't want him going to a rodeo. I'm selfish. I didn't want him going to a rodeo guy because I'm like,
Wouldn't you love to see Dustin Egeskes bringing heat on Marty over there?
I mean, maybe one time I would love to see it, but I wouldn't want to see it every week.
Day? I don't
No,
wanna
because
deal
I'm
with
trying
that.
to beat the guy.
I don't want to deal with that.
Right, I don't want to mess with that guy. So I didn't tell Dustin that Marty was for sale. I didn't tell Dustin or Tanner Tomlinson that Marty was for sale.
I don't know if they subscribe to the Toter Tales. I mean, if you guys are out there on Spotify, I mean, this could be some insider information.
Yeah.
This could be your opportunity to own one of the greatest head horses of all time.
You never want to sell to your competition. Like, I mean, you don't. I didn't. I didn't ever want nobody happy.
But like, honestly, you gave $4,500. Would you take 3 times your money today?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good, right? No.
Best offer you've had today.
Right. And so I was thinking, I was like, man, and then so I was like, well, what's he worth? I'm like, I have no idea what.
$1 billion to you.
No.
I mean,
I'm
saying
saying
like for what he's done to your career.
He's done everything
I mean,
for me, right? So
how do you put a price on that?
to me, I mean, I grew up. I'm old school. Like, I mean, the horse. If a horse costs $40,000 or $50,000, that's a ton of money. But what is that horse worth? I have no idea what that horse is worth. So I heard about the sale, the Rancho Rio sale and stuff, and I thought most of the time that's a prestigious sale. The people that's going to that sale are the people that goes to the jackpots. They're not your rodeo guys that and so I'm
There's
being a
going to
little
be
selfish.
the top 20 headers in the world. The Rancho Rio sale the number.
I'll be on it. No, I'm gonna. So I called Steve Friskup and he's Tayos, and they're Steve Auctioneers and Tayos puts it on, and so I called him, and I also have Suntan.
Now the Steve Friskup from our story earlier, like you.
So I grew up with Steve my whole life, and so I called Steve and I talked to Steve, and Steve said, you know what? He said, I can't believe you're even. He said, I wish I had enough.
You told me this.
He said, I wish I had enough money. I'd buy him from you right now. And I said, well, I don't even know I have no idea what he's going to bring. I said, I'm going to let him go because I said I don't want him sitting around there. To me, I love that horse so much. Like I don't want to see him
Why don't you go
over
make somebody
10
else's
years.
day?
Right, it's time for him to go somewhere else. And so, anyway, Steve said I'd be honored to have an opportunity to sell that horse. And I said, well, it's just a thought. And
Like honored enough, he doesn't want to take his commission, or
well, I'm gonna have to talk to him about that.
I mean,
We'll
like,
split
let's talk.
it.
What's
Right.
honor?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. But so I've got him, and I've got the Yellow Horse Suntan booked in that sale. But it's a hard deal, and I've had even my brothers. I told my brothers
That
about
is
it.
the bad foot.
And
I almost come fly hot on the bad foot.
It's fine. I told my brothers, and they're like, you ain't gonna do that. And I said, no, I really think I'm going to. Because it's time for me to let him go. I'm not using him.
Now, how old is Marty now?
He's 16.
And he's back to sound.
Yeah, I rode him at 2 jackpots before we came out here, and I rode him at a rodeo. I rode him at Weatherford, and then when I went back to, my plan was when I go back to Dodge, instead of hauling him to Reno and everything, when I went back for Dodge, I was going to ride him that week at Dodge, and then maybe take him Northwest. He's great at Pendleton, like on the grass. He's so sure-footed. I was like, I could take him back here, and it would be kind of less traveling, like over the 4th. And so anyway, but in my situation now, I hadn't done anything. But anyway, so I'm kind of curious, but that's not till March. I don't know. I may, maybe.
But right now he's booked in the Rancho Rio.
He's in.
So.
I made a promise to him, and I told him I was going to bring him. So I'm gonna take him.
Wow.
Take him to Rancho Rio.
Man, I think, one, I'm like everybody else who probably just heard that, just, wow, I can't believe it. But two, I think that's very respectful, you know what I mean, to your animal. Because we are stewards of them is what we have them. And then if you can't, maybe it's opportunity for somebody else.
He's sitting in a stall, like he's sitting in the pen right now. Like that horse, I know what that horse wants to chase a cow. Like that's what he wants to do. And so I feel like he needs to be chasing a steer. And I've got, luckily blessed enough to where like I've got 2 or 3 other horses that are coming up that I compare them to Marty all the time. Like I have thought about teleporting Marty. I need Marty like for Puyallup, but he's so out of shape right now. I hadn't rode him since I've been gone. I was like, man, how cool would it be to have Marty?
It doesn't seem like you need much, man. You're rolling. But one other thing I think, what a great lesson you learned as a kid. You know what I mean? When it's time to move on from one, and that's one thing I've been terrible about over my career is being able to sell them. I got 4 head horses. There are 3 head horses out here with me right now. I don't even ride the one, and I still don't want to entertain the thought of selling. Cause it's like I'm like you. I don't want to see somebody else win on him as bad.
Right.
Especially if he helps their herd. That's a great point. But man, that's
it's gonna be interesting.
I'm very impressed with that. That's wow. I couldn't do that.
No.
Like Booger, he just totes my little girl around, and it's so funny because you say like them old rodeo horses, you'd think they would just be the best kid horses ever.
Right.
And then the other day at the barrel race, she turns the backside of the 3rd barrel, and our friend Jennifer's announced, she's like, "Go Stella!" And when it Booger threw his head up, for like 3 strides, which I was like, wow, I only need 4.
Right. Yeah.
You know what
right.
I mean? I want to ride him. Like,
those good horses like that, they never quit trying. That's what's cool about them is, I've had horses that I rodeoed on some that they'll kind of give it up. Those good ones though, like they never do. They never quit trying.
Booger's 28 years old now, and I guarantee you,
never quit trying.
If you music fired up one time, and Preacher was that way until he was gone. Man, I tell you, so you roped with Jake Long. That was, you've been the big highlight of the talk of all year. Let's face it. You split with Jake. You start roping with Jake Long. Then obviously you have your accident. Now you're back in action. Looks like you're going to make it. So what are you this week? 15th, 14th? You're 14th or 13th, right?
I think I'm 14th.
I think. It's still a lot of
Oh,
bullets left in the gun.
Yeah.
No, so let's talk a little bit about the bubble, because I think the bubble is exciting from this standpoint. It's higher than it's ever been.
Right.
Like you've got what 70.
77, 78, something like that.
And before that that's way safe.
Right.
And now I think it's really incredible. We got 2 headers that are going to break the earnings record. I still talk about that all the time. Clay Trine, he's only like 7,000 back of it.
Right.
Driggers has obliterated it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, wow, you still got, and then you got the high end guys, the guys that are top 5. They're winning more than they've ever won.
Right.
And it's taken more than it's ever needed to make the national finals. I think the payoff scale and how incredible all these committees adding all this money.
Oh, that's crazy. To go to everywhere's 10,000 added that we go to. That we official this year. It seems like everywhere. I'm officialing some $500 added.
You're headed to a 500 added.
I'm going to an amateur rodeo that just turned PRCA rodeo this week, but it is crazy that how much money there is that they've added this year. It's unbelievable. It's a great thing.
And I think, you can talk about your gold buckles. You almost won the world in the all-around. People don't know that. You were one failed heel loop in the 10th round one time. Not giving specifics, but to win the all-around world title that year, 2016, take it from Junior Nagara. And, you've had a lot of great comebacks. You've won the Junior World. You've won everything. But I think the most impressive thing that I've seen is the way you've gotten Jake Long to unboot your horse when you're done.
That is impressive.
That ought to tell you where you're at as a header.
Right.
Like when he's unbooting your horse.
He only does it when I catch. So when I miss.
If not, he just leaves you strapped in.
I'll see you later. Yeah. No. He's been a good team member.
So you got to tell this story. The other day we all go to San Juan. I send my rig. Tiff's got all the 6 horses. I fly in. I stay the extra day because you guys had to rope on Sunday. We rope Saturday. So I'm like, hey, what do y'all need? You guys are running a little bit behind. Now, Clay has done this big article about this fancy little fender he's got. And now, what a difference this fender's made. It's real thin. And So I said, hey, I saddle the horses. I mean, I'm making a hand. I'm out here doing my best. I get your horse saddled. And I asked him, I said, hey, so do we need this stirrup set up here? Now, when I say that, what I mean is the entire situation, the fender, all of it. He's like, no, we can go ahead and pull that off. I brought my stirrups with me. Perfect. Blevins buckle off. I ripped that thing off there. And then I go in the toter home, and it was hot. You know, we're watching Sports Center. Right. We're kind of getting some stuff set up in here. Well, then all of a sudden the door blows open. I can tell the panic from Jake Long's face because we've rodeoed a long time before, you know. And so he blows the door. He's like, hey, you got a screwdriver in here? We got to fix something. I'm like, what happened? Like, what's wrong? I'm like, yeah, I got one. We jump start the toter sometimes. I've got one back here that we fix this with. What do you need? He's like, well, we didn't mean to take the fender off. He shows up with his stirrup, comes around the corner, his entire stirrup's gone. He's got his metal stirrup for your walking boot.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to ride just one stirrup, nothing over there on the right, just like Indian style. I showed up and there was no fender at all on my stirrup.
How did your heart drop right there?
I was like, oh, because I seen that buddy, Doug Harrigal, that fixed my fender. It was a process, and so I'm like, when I seen that, I'm like, oh man.
That was an Eastern Okie miscommunication.
This was a miscommunication, but I was like, we'll be okay. But you did good. You took the side. I would have been trying to put it on with the horse. So
you kids out there, if somebody ever steals your fender, you just take the saddle off, you set it up on the tree.
I had the old hay string trick that Doug showed me. You put the hay string through the hole and then you weave it through, but you have to have them unsaddled.
How much can you fix with hay string?
Hay string is coming really handy this year. Really handy.
That's awesome. Well, Clay, we thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us in our signature quarters look. Thanks for your signature moment. Marty, going in the Rancho Rio sale next March.
Yep. I can actually say there'll probably be some tears, and then I've said it growing up before.
I think I'm going to cry. I'm not going to lie to you, you know.
It'll be a weird deal.
I mean, for a decade and a half, it feels like we've seen you on that gray. Well, thank you for coming. Hey, good luck the rest of the season. Looks like you guys are rocking and rolling.
Thank you.
Doesn't look like you need luck. You don't even need a second leg, really. Let's be honest. So, enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody, we're going to let you go. Thank you for joining us in the Toter Tales. Check us out, Spotify. I'm going to be on Apple for long. Don't panic on me. And it's just Coleman Proctor one more time reminding you, never miss an opportunity to make somebody's life better.